Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to our June ACA Roundup. As always, appreciate you all coming out and joining us this afternoon. As you can probably tell, Karen is out this week. She is on vacation, so you're stuck with me once more. But don't worry, Karen will be back soon, and she'll be here to present the next month's roundup, so you won't be stuck looking at my face for too much longer. As always, again, we appreciate everybody coming out. Before I jump in, just the quick housekeeping notes. As always, these are monthly webinars that we've been doing for a little while now, where essentially we just want to go over all the ACA news that you might have missed, let you know about some O'Neill marketing updates, pretty much just fill you in on anything that we really want to make sure that agents are all aware of. And as always, too, we are not going to be doing Q&A live here. But if you do have any questions that come up during this presentation, feel free to throw them into the Q&A area. You should see it on the left side of your screen. And if you have any questions there, we will answer them afterwards in an email. So if you do have any questions as we're going through, not going to do them live, but feel free to throw your questions up there and we will certainly get to them. So we'll go ahead and get started with just some industry news for everybody. First thing up this month is a UHC late payment report. This is something that UHC has been developing, and we think it'll be really useful for a lot of agents. So we just wanted to highlight it for everybody. Essentially, what this is a report to help agents ensure that all your clients are staying covered and staying up to date on their premium payments. So this report will help to identify members in your UHC book of business who have overdue premium payments. If you log into your UHC Jarvis portal, you'll see a brief preview of the report actually just right on the homepage. It'll really just be the high level numbers of them, numbers of members who have late payments or are in a grace period. And then if you actually go into the report itself, you'll see a lot more detail to it. So you'll see for everybody how many days are left in their grace period. You'll see how much premium they owe, the outstanding balance, and all the good stuff like that, so that you can reach out to your clients and make sure that they're staying up to date on all their premium payments so that they don't lose coverage. And a good note for this too is just to keep in mind the grace periods for UHC in this case, but frankly for all the carriers as well. So for UHC, your subsidized members, so if they're receiving a subsidy from the government towards their premium, they actually have a 90-day grace period as opposed to unsubsidized UHC members who are only going to have a 30-day grace period. So that is important to keep in mind because if you do have clients who are receiving a subsidy from the marketplace, fortunately, they do have a significantly longer grace period to get all the commissions paid up before the carrier will go and just terminate their policies. And this is something that is, important to keep in the back of your mind because if you aren't already aware, most carriers across the board will actually delay commission payments until policies are out of their grace period. So if you have a client who's gone a month or two without paying their premium, even though the carrier won't necessarily just go and terminate that policy, they will most likely stop paying commissions on the policy until all the premiums are paid up and everything is back to normal. So it is important to keep in mind because it does actually directly impact your commission payments most of the time. And the other thing that I will note on this before we move on to is that it's always good to reach out to your clients to let them know, especially if they're reaching the end of a grace period. But do certainly also keep in mind that if you're not doing it or you're not able to do it, as good of an idea as it is, carriers and the marketplace and Health Sherpa will be also reaching out to your client. So just keep in mind too that you're not the only person who will be reaching out to your client if they're missing premium payments. But this is a useful feature that'll let you see who it is and let you do a little bit of outreach too if you're so inclined. And I just want to end this too by saying that we're highlighting UHC's reports here because that's come up recently. But it is worth noting too that a lot of other carriers have similar capacities actually built into their portal, where in one way or another you'd be able to see reports for stuff like this. So as always, I know we've mentioned this a lot of times, so not to belabor a point that we've hit on multiple times in the past. But if you're not familiar with your carrier portals, or if, God forbid, you haven't actually even logged in, please make sure that you're going ahead and doing that, because there are a lot of really great resources in each of the carrier portals that they've been developing, and really that will make your job a lot easier. So if you're not already taking advantage of that, please make sure that you are able to get into your broker portals and that you're familiar with how to navigate them, because that's the best way to take advantage of some of the cool stuff that carriers are developing, like this late payment report. So next up, I wanted to just touch on an announcement from Aetna CVS recently about their broker oversight policy. And this is something that probably shouldn't come as too big of a surprise to pretty much anyone here, because this has kind of been the trend of the whole ACA space for the last little bit. But Aetna has kind of been laying it out where they are really beefing up their zero tolerance policies for prohibited broker behavior. And I'm sure most of you probably already know what they're referring to with that prohibited behavior. Most of the time, it's going to be issues with consent or client facing complaints that they're getting from either the DOI or the clients directly. AOR swaps, a lot of the stuff like that we've been seeing, frankly, all over the marketplace recently. That's kind of the behavior that CMS and all of the carriers are really trying to single out and tamp down on. So Edna said that effective immediately, they'll be not only closely reviewing all of agent activities to try to proactively catch a lot of bad behavior, but they're also going to be really locking in on the letters of inquiry that are going to be sent out to pretty much every single agent who's involved in a member complaint that comes from CMS or the state DOI, or even directly with Aetna. So pretty much if a complaint is raised by a consumer and that makes its way to Aetna, they are going to be opening a case and looking into that. And it's important to note too, because that means that they're going to be reaching out directly to agents as well. And they're going to be asking you all for proof of consent, for information about these policies that you wrote, and a lot of stuff like that. And it's really important to note too, because we see a lot of times where carriers will reach out, they'll send out an email, first request, second request, they'll sometimes do it 4 or 5 times before the agents even respond. And a lot of carriers are kind of locking down on that, and they might not give so much lenience to that going forward. So it's just really important, of course, that you are getting all the proper consent, that you are following the rules laid out by CMS and all the carriers. Not only that, but also on the back end, once you've done all that, that you're replying to all of these emails and you are responding to all these inquiries as promptly as possible. Because even if you've done everything by the book, you have consent, everything is totally fine. If you don't respond to those emails from Aetna or any of the carriers, if there's a compliance issue, they'll still terminate your appointment, and they'll raise that up with CMS too. Even if you're in the right, if you don't get back to them, they will take action. So it's super important that you keep an eye out for those emails coming from Aetna, and better, all of the carriers across the board are doing similar things, and that you just get back to them with the information they request as soon as humanly possible. As long as you're getting consent and you're running a clean shop, there should not be any issue, and you'll just have to respond to them very promptly to make sure that this all gets cleared up. And then it did also say that they will be terminating appointments, and maybe even more than that, if obviously, of course, if you're not being compliant with CMS and Aetna's requirements, that could lead to a termination. But also, again, there too, if you are not fulfilling their requests in a timely manner, that can lead to a termination as well. So really the high level on this is just make sure, of course, as always, I know we've really been hitting this hard for the last few months, honestly, last year, it feels like at this point. But consent is super, super important, and every day is becoming more important. CMS and carriers are taking a closer look at all this. So it's just really important that you're doing everything to meet the CMS requirements. You're gathering and maintaining all of your consent and eligibility notices. And then on top of that, if any carrier reaches out to you requesting consent, requesting documents, any sort of questions like that, please get back to them as soon as humanly possible so that you can get everything resolved. Now, on that note, too, CMS is also, they published recently a handful of new resources just about consent, and answering a lot of common consumer and agent questions about the consent and the application review documents that agents are supposed to be gathering and maintaining for every single enrollment. So a lot of these FAQs cover stuff like when do I need to get consumer consent? What are the acceptable methods of getting the consent and the application review? Can they be on the same form? What about other languages, et cetera, et cetera? Pretty much, unless you have a very left field question, there's a really good chance that CMS has already actually answered this. So you can see at the bottom of the slide, there is a link to those FAQs. And so if you do have any questions or you just want to look around or you just haven't checked them out yet, again, I would highly recommend that you go and take a look at those and just make sure that you are familiar with all of the consumer consent rules and that you are doing everything compliantly. Because as I mentioned just a second ago, both CMS and carriers are really putting a lot more work into the compliance side of things, at least compared to years past. So you'll probably start seeing an uptick of compliance requests, document requests, everything like that. And it's just really important that everyone is complying and is providing everything you need to the carriers as well. So if you're unsure of whether you're getting all the correct documents, please make sure to double check on that, look into the CMS documents, and just make sure you're doing everything in your power to remain compliant and hitting all the CMS requirements. And on top of that, too, I want to mention as well, if you're part of an agency that has consolidated everything under maybe just one or two NPNs, I know that's pretty common for a lot of agencies. If you are in a situation like that as well, I will say two things. A, that makes it even more important that you are being compliant and responding to all these requests. Because, of course, if you have all your business under just one or two NPNs, if anything happens to those appointments, that's a much, much bigger issue in that case. So you'll want to make sure that you're really, really staying on top of that. But also, too, beside that, I would recommend maybe even looking into getting some more agents appointed, have some more writing NPNs in your organization, and spread that around to multiple agents to make that workload a little bit lighter per NPN. So just some things to keep in mind as we move closer to open enrollment and as everybody is focusing on getting appointed. Next slide here. There we go. And then on the staying on the CMS topic, if you have not already seen, CMS's learning management system is going to be shutting down on Friday, July the 12th. So in about 3 weeks. So you'll see pretty much the morning of July the 12th. The CMS learning management system is going to go, they call it going dark, essentially going to shut down. You're not going to be able to do any more of those trainings. They do this every year in preparation for the launch of their 2025 FFM training. So this is, again, something that happens every year. They're usually shut down from anywhere between 3 to 5 weeks. Kind of just depends. But I do want to note that because if you or anyone was hoping to get FFM certified and appointed, in the next little bit, they'll just need to make sure that they do that before July the 12th, because if they don't, then they're going to have to wait until the CMS learning management system reopens, and probably somewhere around mid-March will be the next time they reopen. So if they wait until after July 12th, they'll just have to wait a little bit longer. So if they are urgently needing to get going, just make sure that you get that done here in the next few weeks. Otherwise, just hold your peace until the beginning of August when that'll reopen and you can continue your certifications at that point. And we also wanted to note as well, on the good news side of things, Ambetter has extended their transfer period. It's still, closing relatively soon. So, I will preface this by saying, please don't let this breed complacency. Definitely still time is always of the matter. So don't let this delay. But if you are still working on Ambetter transfers, just know that they have extended their transfer period through the end of August. So you'll now have until August 31st to complete all your transfer documents and submit those to Ambetter for processing. Before this, it was the end of July. So fortunately, that will help out a lot of agents. But again, please don't hesitate on getting this started. We unfortunately do see it every year. The deadlines always seem far away until they're staring you right in the face. And so, if you hold, there is always a good chance that something might happen, you might miss it, and then you're stuck. So if you are thinking about transferring Ambetter or frankly any of the other carriers, please go ahead and get that started. Get all those documents submitted as soon as humanly possible. Because again, the closer and closer we get to October, November, the longer it will take carriers to process all your appointment requests. And that really does apply whether it's a transfer or a brand new appointment. The closer we get to open enrollment, the longer it will take. So just keep that in mind, and understand that now is really the time that you want to be getting set up for open enrollment. If you wait until end of September, beginning of October, and then realize I've got to get a bunch of new appointments, I've got to transfer stuff, you know, you might just be out of luck. You might have missed the deadline, but also, again, we see it every year. People request appointments into September, beginning of October. Carriers are really busy and they don't get the appointment until after open enrollment started. And there's not really a whole lot you can do about that other than taking action now. So again, as always, I know we belabor this point a lot, but please, please, please make sure you're putting in your appointment request to be the newer transfers as soon as possible. And our commission or our contracting team rather will get that going and get you appointed with everything that you need. Right. And we also wanted to just make a note too about an Oregon Basic Health Program. It's going to be starting on July 1st, so just a few days. And if you're not familiar with the Basic Health Program, essentially what this is it is a state-sponsored program that kind of fits in between Medicaid and ACA. And again, this is going to be kind of a gross oversimplification. So if you want a little bit more information, there is a link here again at the bottom of the slide. It's got some more information. I would also, as always, kind of encourage you to look into it yourself. But again, kind of the simplified version, the basic health program is really for consumers who are on the upper end of Medicaid. Kind of the thought is, if your income is at 130 to 150% of the federal poverty limit, there's a good chance that you're going to see a little bit of fluctuation year to year. So you might think you're making 150, but then at the end of the year, it's under the Medicaid limit. So what some states do is they have this kind of intermediary basic health plan for people between 138 and 200% of the federal poverty limit. So if you're in that range, then they would put you instead of Medicaid into this basic health program, which is kind of in between Medicaid and a marketplace plan. And again, I am certainly simplifying a lot of things here. There's a lot more nuance to it that I'm not really going to get into. But for all intents and purposes, what this will mean for ACA agents working in Oregon is that if you have clients who want to get enrolled in an ACA plan, their income is actually going to need to be over 200% of the federal poverty limit instead of the 138. Because then essentially, once that goes into effect, if they're under 138%, they'll be eligible for Medicaid. If they're between 138 and 200%, then they'd be eligible for this basic health program. And then above 200 is where they get into the realm of being eligible for ACA plans and being able to enroll in those kind of things. So just wanted to let everybody know because that will impact agents who are working in Oregon. And if you weren't aware too, I just wanted to close this out by saying as well that this is actually not a brand new thing. New York and Minnesota are actually doing this already and have been doing it for a little while. Oregon is, though, only the third state to do it, so it's not super common, but it is something that, you might see pop up in some other states as well as the years go by. All right, and now I'm going to transition over to some news from the O'Neill marketing team. Pretty much one of the big things we wanted to just mention here today is that if you haven't already seen it, we did do some updates to the agent portal. The biggest thing is we've just revamped the homepage so things look a little different and added some new things there that we think will help agents. Really, the biggest thing that you'll see now on the homepage is in the bottom left of your homepage. You're actually going to see your agent consultant with their contact information, a nice little picture of them too. I wanted to highlight that because, as we mentioned in some of the past webinars, we are kind of transitioning to this agent consultant system where pretty much every agent that works with O'Neill Marketing is going to have your direct agent or agency consultant who is going to be there to help you with anything that comes up. And not to say, though, that the support team and our contracting and commission team are not, of course, still there to support you. They will and always will be there to help you. But more so that if you want a point of contact, you want one person to go to for help with, anything from general support to commissions to business planning, stuff like that. It's going to be a really great resource because that'll be essentially your point of contact, your go-to person on the O'Neill marketing team who can help make sure that everything's getting done and help, come up with any solutions to problems that you might encounter. So if you do have something you want to reach out to, that'd be a really great resource for you. Go ahead and reach out to your consultant. You'll find, again, their direct phone number, their direct email, right on your agent portal homepage. Go ahead and reach out to them, and they'll be more than happy to assist you with whatever you need. Another big thing we added too, you'll see a new tab for O'Neill Marketing Offerings, and that's going to bring you to a map of the United States where you can click on any state and you can actually see which carriers we work with in that particular state. So you want to, maybe get appointed with some carriers in Texas. You can go to that map, click on it. You can see all the carriers that we're offering in Texas at the moment. So that's a really good resource that we've wanted to add into the portal there. So again, those are just two of the higher level changes that we made. You'll see a handful of other smaller things, changes to the design. The appointments look a little different. Not going to delve into too much of that right now because there are actually more changes to come for the agent portal. We're always looking to make updates, make everything better for you, make everything a little bit more user friendly. And then, of course, we're always looking to add new functionality to the portal as well. So we're going to be having some more updates as we go further in the year. So as always, stay tuned for that. We think we've got some really great stuff in store on the portal that we think is really, really going to be useful to a lot of agents here. And then we also wanted to touch back on some of the short-term medical changes that are going to be taking effect September 1st. This is another area. We've discussed this in past webinars, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but if you need just a quick reminder, the big changes that are going to be coming in September is that initial short-term medical policies are going to be limited to coverage periods of 3 months initially, with a maximum of 4 months once you take into account renewals and extensions. But that's going to be a hard limit on 3 or 4 months for that policy length. And then on top of that, policyholders aren't going to be able to get stacked in other policies. So they can't be sold another policy by the same carrier within that rolling 12-month period. And essentially, as we said before, the reason they're doing this is some agents will use short-term medical plans that go upwards of 12 months as essentially a replacement for just a normal qualified health plan, either on the marketplace or else. And so they're kind of making these changes to bring short-term back to its roots of really just being a short-term solution to the coverage issue. So if you are an agent who does have clients on these short-term medical plans that are going for longer than that 3 or 4 month policy, just keep in mind that is going to be changing come September 1st. But if you have not heard, we are rolling out some other products, some off-market PPO network plans. We did a few webinars on them a little while ago, and essentially these are just qualified major medical plans that are off-market that would take the place of an ACA plan. They do require some underwriting. I won't go into all the details here, but if that does sound like something you're interested, I would really recommend that you go ahead and either look at our agent portal. We have recordings of the webinar and a lot of the information on the plans in the agent resources section. Or if you want to sell them and you want to get contracted, go ahead and reach out to your agent consultant. They'll be able to provide some more information for you, tell you all about it. And then if you're interested in selling them, they can help you get contracted to sell those plans. And we think come September 1st, some stuff like that might be a really great replacement for clients who were relying on these extended short-term medical plans as their main insurance policy. So something to keep in mind. And with this and with pretty much everything else, if you do have any questions or you're interested in it, please reach out to your agent consultant, and they are more than happy to help you out with that. Then the last thing that I really wanted to touch on this month was just some Health Sherpa webinars. If you haven't already seen, Health Sherpa is in the process of hosting a handful of webinars more geared towards maybe newer agents or agents not as familiar with the Hell Sherpa platform. But they're really, really useful webinars. Even for me, I still tune in and I like to watch them because I still, even to this day, learn at least one new thing on every one of those webinars. So if you are interested in that, go ahead, please try to check them out. They've been emailing out registration links for each webinar. But if you haven't gotten it and you are interested, you can go ahead and just contact Hell Sherpa support, and I'm sure they'll be able to send you those registration links as well. So far, they've done webinars on just your basic, how to use Health Sherpa, how to create an account, the basic functions of Health Sherpa. They did a webinar last week on quoting and enrolling, where they went through the entire process from quoting a plan to doing the application and then to enrolling in the plan, which is very, very useful. Again, if you're not super familiar with Health Sherpa or the application process. And then the other day, actually, they did a webinar that I found very, very useful on Health Sherpa's consent and compliance tools. Because if you weren't already aware, Health Sherpa has built in a lot of functionality on the consent and compliance side that I think could be really useful to agents, especially if you've been struggling to implement some of the consent and compliance guidelines to your workflow, to your enrollment process. If you've been maybe struggling with that, or you're not trying to have a bunch of different platforms where you're doing everything on, go ahead and check that out. It might be that Health Sherpa has the built-in tools that you need for your business, and you can do all of your consent and compliance and documentation right in the Health Sherpa workflow without having to jump onto another platform. So if you are interested in seeing what they have to offer, again, I would highly recommend that you check out those webinars. But if you can't attend them live, just know we are saving as many of the recording and presentation slides and Q&A reports as they become available right in our agent portal. So again, if you want to attend them live, I would definitely recommend doing so. That way you'll be able to see it. You can ask any questions live that you need. But if you just want to see what it's all about, or you weren't able to make it, we do have the recordings for decent amount of them in the agent portal. Just go to the public folder, and then in the general selling informations tab, you'll see an entire folder that's just called Health Sherpa webinars, and you'll be able to see those. And we'll be posting some more stuff there as they become available to us. I really just wanted to highlight that because, again, I think these are really, really great resources, especially if you're a newer agent, but even if you're a little bit more experienced and you just want to see some of the new additions on Health Sherpa. It's a really great resource, and they'll be showing a lot of information that might be useful to you. And so that is going to bring us to the end of our June roundup. The next month's roundup is pretty much as always. It's going to be on the last Tuesday of July. That is July 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're interested, you'll be able to register on the link that's sent out after this webinar. Again, you'll be getting a copy of these slides here in just a little bit. So go ahead and register for that if you are interested, and mark your calendars, because Karen's going to be back next month with, I am sure, a ton of fantastic information for all of you. And as always, thank you so much for attending. We really do appreciate you all taking time out of your busy day, coming and joining us to learn a little bit more about the ACA industry, educate yourself on the goings on in this area. So as always, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions or need anything at all, again, please feel free to reach out to either your agent consultant or to our general support team with any of your questions. We're always here, and we are always happy to help. So thank you much, and I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day.